Okay, so I'm Sonia Vohnout, and I'm collaborating with the University of Arizona Center for Innovation, who's one of the power connectors for the DOE and ERE. And so last time we had the presentation, a little bit of a summary about the FOA. And today, what we're going to be focusing in is how to write the proposal and understanding the review criteria. So I'm not going to talk too much about the FOA itself, but more let's focus on the technical content. So about me, I've been doing consulting for the small businesses now for almost 20 years. And I've been working with the UACI many years, maybe going close to what I'd say 4 or 5 years now. And so that's probably why they asked me to help you guys. So if you ever have needs for technical and business assistance and commercialization strategies and how to write proposals, please reach out. For today, the agenda is going to be simple. We're going to be doing a very, very quick overview of the funding opportunity and the topics, as well as talking about the application and submission and review information. For the application process, you all know today is the concept paper due date, no later than 5 p.m. Eastern. And then in a couple months or less, you're going to be having to submit a full application again by 5 p.m. Eastern. All the instructions can be found on the ERE exchange and on the FOA. If you need an additional help, you can certainly reach out to us. Keep in mind that to submit a full application, you will need to have a SAM registration that's active. In addition, when you get your SAM registration, you also get a unique identity identifier or UEI. Make sure that you note the control number. It has to be in all your documents and part of the um, file naming convention. So as you recall, the agencies providing this funding opportunity is the Department of Energy through the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, or EERE, and the Solar Energy Technologies Office, or SETO, which provides R&D support or research and development, where the key here, at least for specifically for this funding opportunity, is to demonstrate innovations that can be done in the United States, reducing the supply chain dependence outside of the United States, and also to develop new dual use applications in photovoltaics. There's about $45 million available over 3 years. And you've got to make sure that you're an eligible organization. You've got to be for profit. If you're submitting your application as a prime, you can partner with other DoD or DOE organizations like the NNSSA and the federally funded laboratories, but keep in mind that their participation as a sub-recipient would have to be about 20% cost share as well. And everything has to be done in the United States. And if you are proposing something other than that, you will have to submit a foreign waiver request as part of your full application. And most likely it will not be accepted. It's very rare when they do, but you don't know until you don't apply, right? So keep that in mind. It's not easy to get that waiver approved. And only new applications. This is not about resubmitting. And the type of funding opportunity, it's a cooperative agreement. So the key benefits and metrics that I was able to summarize through the solicitation and the announcement is they're focusing on reducing energy use and the carbon footprint. We want to improve the process for low-cost manufacturing of solar modules domestically, and to increase the productivity of PV power output, reduce the cost of solar modules and the system hardware, and reduce the supply chain vulnerabilities. So A lot of this bipartisan infrastructure law all came about during COVID. You saw how everything collapsed because of our dependence in foreign supply chain deliverables and components. So as you see, part of the topic one, the purpose is to reduce that dependence. So we need to diversify those supply chains, and we need to do it domestically, as well as meeting the decarbonization and climate goals. So we're going to aim at reducing that reliance on imported materials and technologies, and we're going to keep in mind that we want to have some domestic economic growth in the United States. So we want to see how we're going to have an increase in jobs, and also keeping in mind that we have to have secure our energy. And then how are we going to produce these export opportunities, right? So we're going to do stuff here, but is there the possibility to export? We've got to create a very reliable and robust supply chain. And then, as you know, and if you start or if you've been involved in submitting proposals across the different federal agencies, there's a huge push towards enhancing equity and engaging the underserved communities, such as, for instance, the tribal nations. So we'll discuss some of that too. So you all know there's two topics. One is about a pilot demonstration on silicon supply chain components. That's about, doing things domestically, reducing our foreign dependence on those supply chains. And then the second topic is to create a demonstration of, and doing research and development of stuff that's done in the United States, but within a dual use application. Can we use it for agricultural purposes or for buildings or for vehicles, for instance? So with the first topic, it's a pilot demonstration. We're looking at demonstrating that we can reduce that supply chain dependence and using products such as silicon ignite and wafering, new solar cell types, glass processes, informations, and coatings, and for instance, transparent or flexible backsheets or other module components, and equipment or consumables that are used to manufacture any of the above bullet materials and components. And they're looking for companies with already existing expertise that want to demonstrate that they can scale within a controlled environment. Keep in mind, topic one is tied in very closely with this bipartisan infrastructure law or the bill when you're doing your reporting requirements. So this goes back to that initiative that started as a result of the collapse of the supply chain during the COVID and after the pandemic. The second topic is doing research and development for domestically made products. And the markets that they're interested in dual use are the agrivoltaics, the building integrated PVs, floating photovoltaics, and the vehicle integrated PVs. And here, the types of applications they're looking are maybe PV cells, modules, mounting applications, or are there other dedicated components where you're going to be doing research and development to prove the feasibility that you could do it here and you could do that product applied to one of these four dual use PV sectors. And facilitate and accelerate that production here in the United States, but also demonstrating a performance improvement, right? So, and how can you, with not only do a performance improvement, but also help with the goals of decarbonizing that are stated in the FOA. So some application requirements. Everything has to be submitted as PDF files. It has to be written in English. It's got to fit 8 by 5 by 11, your standard paper, 1 inch margins. And I'm bolding here the type font. When I was reviewing concept papers, one of them was very dense. And it was, when you have so much information right in front of me. And then I got curious. Well, I realized their font was like really like 10 or 11. And it's like, let me check the requirements. And it turns out there's a requirement that it's got to be no less than 12 point. So make sure that you satisfy that requirement. It might mean that you have to rewrite some of your concept paper materials. Don't forget your control number. I describe what that file naming convention should look like. Put page numbers on all the footers. Don't exceed the maximum number of pages. I believe topic number 1 is no more than 15. Topic number 2 might be no more than 12, but I think I have a slide on that. Any questions, contact the ERE Exchange. And then you've got support from, the UACI and 2 other organizations as power connectors for this particular FOA. So don't hesitate to reach out. And keep in mind that files can't exceed 50 megabytes of size. And if one does, break it up into different files, and you might have to note that somehow with your also naming convention. So today we're going to focus on the technical volume and only on what that technical volume looks like for those topics 1 and 2. And there's slight differences between them, like the number of pages and maybe some of them because topic 1 is tied into the bipartisan infrastructure law. So, but that's what we're going to focus on today, how to create the most attractive and compelling story for your technical volume. So, as mentioned, topic 1 is 15 pages and topic 2 is no more than 10. So I was wrong when I said 12. So it's no more than 10. PDF format, conform to all the content form requirements, don't exceed the page limits. And I always tell folks, when you're writing proposals, when you tell your story, tell it in such a way that you are satisfying the review criteria, right? You're writing a story that has to satisfy how the reviewers are going to rate you, right? So create a table maybe with all the requirements and check the box and tell yourself, how am I addressing this review criteria? Am I meeting it? Am I strong or weak? And how am I going to overcome that? Follow the naming conventions, include citations and references as needed. So, all right. So the technical volume. These are the different sections of the technical volume. I'm not going to discuss the cover page. And we're going to go into some detail of the different components. Now, on this table, I provide you here. And by the way, everything is on the FOA except maybe my notes or my recommendations. That's just me and how I would do something. But keep in mind, they're giving you a recommendation of the percent of the volume. So if you have 10 pages, 1 page for the project overview, 3 pages for technical description and innovation impact, 4 pages for your work plan, market transformation plan, and 2 pages for your technical qualifications and research. So it's resources. So it's a guideline, right? But keep that in mind, because this also, if you look and see what the review criteria is and the scoring, it's very closely matched to this percent volume as well. So I noted that the other day when I was reviewing this. So let's go project overview. So about 10%, 1-2 pages are going to be to summarize. This is like an executive summary. So you get to brag about your company. Who are you? Do you have success? Um, uh, what have you done with regards to R&D and the status? And are there any relevant previous work, current work, or technologies that you have? So this is your bragging rights here as well as your team, right? And what are you looking to accomplish? So be explicit as to what are you going to accomplish in terms of improvement and your success criteria. And with this money, what's going to be the impact to the DOE? And explain that and how you're going to, why is it necessary to achieve those objectives that you've outlined to create that impact. So when you're describing the innovation and the impact, keep in mind what are going to be what's the relevance and what are going to be the outcome. So a detailed description of your technology, your objectives, how are you going to meet those targets, and what are going to be your expected outcomes. So I recommend for this and next section to think about it in a systems engineering approach. Here's the problem. Here are my goals and objectives. What questions am I looking at answering? What am I looking to achieve? And then how am I going to do it with an outline of the task? And if you think that way and you create a table thinking that way, you're also going to satisfy the requirements of building a work breakdown structure, which you have to do for this solicitation anyways. So think about it that way, and it'll also help you make sure that when you're telling your story, you've outlined and you know how to do each of these items, and you know you're doing them. And it's got to be feasible. How are you going to achieve that feasibility? And what's the innovation and the impact? Compare it against the current state of the art, right? Do you know what the current state of the art is and why are you better? And describe those advantages. One way of doing this is also with a table, right? And if you create a table for yourself, you're going to be able to create a table in the proposal and then also describe it. Work plan and market transformation plan. This one's the one that's the most heavily weighted. And when we talk about a market transformation plan, it's more how are you going to reach commercialization and go to market. So you need to understand, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, what's the market you're in, who your customer is, and how you're going to get to market. So it's not only about the fact that you're talking about your technology and your innovation, but also are you going to be able to commercialize? And so in the work plan, again, think about this systems engineering approach. What are your objectives and how are you going to do the work? So what's going to be that task breakdown and your milestones? And for this FOA, the DOE also wants you to have go, no go decision points. Don't get overly complex here. Recommendations, at least one per reporting or budget period. And we'll go into that in another slide. And then think about it in what's called that SMART format, where it's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. And that way, you'll be able to have a more compelling story too. And you will also be rated against this criteria. You're going to have a project schedule. Think about it like a Gantt chart. And how specifically also to topic one, what are the requirements for infrastructure projects? And it has to be, in the first a couple pages of your work plan. How are you going to manage the project? And again, your market transformation plans or commercialization. So what's a work breakdown structure? It's what tells everyone how you're going to do the work, how you're going to accomplish it, and what you're going to accomplish. What are the milestones and the goals and the deliverables? And then you have to tie it in to your performance period, and you're going to outline all your tasks and subtasks and make sure that you're concise. And one of the nice things, if you do this well, it's also going to help you to have a credible budget, not only for the reviewers, for yourself, because a lot of times folks tend to underscope their budget. So you get the money and then it turns out it's not enough. So by doing well structured and defined WBS, you're going to also have a more credible and a more accurate budget. So this is kind of what a work breakdown structure looks like. You've got your project, it's broken up into phases. Each phase has deliverables, and these deliverables have tasks. And again, if you know what your milestones are, you're going to be able to summarize them and summarize each milestone. So that's a SMART milestone: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. So go and no-go decision points. Don't overly do this, because then you're going to find yourself overdoing the go, no go decision points, but they're going to be necessary when you're doing your risk management, especially when you're proving something is feasible or not. You might reach a particular milestone and say, I'm not going to achieve the performance requirements. And there's no sense for you to continue, and there's no sense for the DOE to continue paying you. So make sure that you tie in the milestones to those decision points. And one suggestion that's done in the FOA is to have at least one that's tied for each budget period. So a budget period could be 12 or 18 months. So basically, 3 year, you could have 2 or 3 go, no go decision points. So with regards to project schedule and management, make sure you provide a detailed schedule, include all your tasks and subtasks, and you'll have that because if you did a work breakdown structure, you're going to have all those details. Just translate it to a schedule and how you're going to manage it. Make sure that also you know who's doing what, when, and where, right? And so that also is detailed in a good project management and schedule. Yeah, and manage your risks. It is a requirement throughout this FOA to have the applicant understand what are the risks: technical, schedule risk, cost risk, and how you're going to mitigate them. Okay, so transformation plan, fancy word for commercialization or taking your product to market. Make sure that you identify who is your target market, who are your competitors, and how you're going to distribute your innovation, your product. You're going to have to understand what are the market drivers, as well as what are the perceived barriers to market penetration, and how are you going to mitigate that. So there's already solutions. People might already have using solar panels in their farms. So how are you going to convince these farmers to replace their current panels and use yours? And that's, a very generic example, but might be the case, right? They've already had the commercial the capital equipment investment. It's large. So how are you going to penetrate and replace them? Are you going to develop your product? What services are you going to provide? What's the timeline? How much money are you going to need? Are there regulatory and legal considerations? How are you going to apply for IP and sustain it? All those kind of questions have to be addressed, or items. And then the final component is about you and your qualifications and your resources. Make sure that you brag about it. Who's on your team? What's their expertise? Can they fulfill the tasks that you've outlined? Do you have the equipment and adequate facilities to conduct your research or your prototyping or your development? And make sure that everybody's got time commitment to this. If there's cost sharing, it's got to be described as well in the budget. And if you're partnering with any of these laboratories or organizations, make sure that you have describe what they're going to do, where, when, who within that organization, and have all the proper agreements in place, and understand if there's, for instance, got to be some publication arrangements and some IP. Who's going to own the IP? Are you licensing it from someone? All that, if you don't specify it correctly or leave it out, could be a red flag during the review process. And how are you going to communicate amongst each other? Is it going to be monthly? Is it going to be bi-weekly? Is it quarterly? Are you going to get together in person? Is it going to be Zoom? How are you going to manage all of this? I'm not going to discuss all of these, maybe a little bit on the red items here, but these are just the list of all the documents you're going to have to provide. Again, all the details of the content of these are in the FOA, so make sure you read it. So the summary and abstracts required for the full application. Some folks have been asking me about this in the budget, and from the screenshots, I can't tell why or where you would add it because I don't have an EERE account, so I'm not privy of the different details of the application. But from the screenshots, I didn't see a place where it would ask. But just in case, if you haven't submitted your concept paper yet, make sure that you have something that's non-proprietary written for that summary abstract, because this becomes public. And these are the requirements of it. 1 page, 1-inch margins, 12-point font, non-proprietary, and it has to be self-contained. It's got to stand on its own. And then the summary slide. This is the information that would go into it. Just a brief technology summary. What's its impact? What are the goals? If you have an illustration, it's worth a million words, they say. A key takeaway, the title, the prime, the principal investigator, PI, and anybody else participating, and the requested funds, and the proposed applicant's cost share. Okay, so we're going to go into review criteria, and I think we're doing good in time. So today you're submitting your concept paper. So this is how they're going to look at your concept paper. Have you clearly described the proposed technology? Is it unique and innovative? And how does it advance the current state of the art? And if I reviewed your concept paper, some of you guys were not very clear on what the innovation was. And I was just like trying like crazy to see it. Crisp, concise. Why your innovation? What is your innovation? Why is it unique? Why is it better than what's out there? Uh, and like I mentioned, you've got to understand your risks and challenges. And are there regulatory, financial aspects? How are you going to mitigate them? And why is this impact relevant to the ERE funding? And what are your qualifications, expertise, capabilities, and the resources as you defined it? And you've got a couple pages to do that on the addendum. That's your opportunity on the concept paper to brag. And you've got to make sure that you make it very clear that you could meet those objectives, not only the ones that you describe you're going to do, but also the objectives of the FOA, whether it's topic 1 or topic 2. And this is how you're going to be rated against topic 1 and 2. So you see there's some correlation to the volume content, but keep in mind in, in in the topic 1, the most important thing is your team and resources. And in topic 2, it's going to be the technical merit of the innovation and impact. And for both of them, the demonstration and your market transformation plan is highly weighted. So if we look at the technical merit, these are the bullet points outlined and in the FOA. So how innovative is the technology? The degree to which it advances the current state of the art. How much better are you? Is there sufficient technical detail? So not only for the reviewer to understand the innovation, but also how are you going to do it? Is it based on a sound approach, on sound background information or proven stuff? And are you overcoming key manufacturing supply chain challenges? Are you considering them and overcoming them? Do you have the sufficient infrastructure to conduct the demonstration? What's the impact that you're going to bring? And how do you support your specific topic area? And the impact of, so yeah, you're better, but what does that mean? Right? And how are you going to manage your project? For the demonstration and market transformation plan, how credible is your approach and your work plan? And I have completely forgotten what SOPO means. Amanda or Casey, if you could search through the FOA, because I'm drawing a blank in my mind what SOPO meant. But the identification and the technical risks, and what are your baseline metrics and deliverables? So that goes back to the work breakdown structure and the SMART concept for your deliverables and milestones. And do you understand your market and how you're going to be commercializing your technology? And how is the industry going to adopt your plan? So all that has to be very credible, and your story has to be well written. And then the team and resources. Do you have a good team, a strong team that can deliver? So thanks, Amanda. Statement of project objectives. There you go. So here again, it's like you've got to have a solid, credible, strong, expert team, right? And you've got to have the facilities and the resources to do what you say you're going to do. And do you have expertise or prior experience, past performance? Put it here. And also, how does it tie into your budget? If you've done a well-detailed work breakdown structure, it's going to help you have a good and reasonable budget, a convincing budget. And don't forget the community benefits plan. There's 3 objectives, and you have to address each of them. So how are you going to advance diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, or the DEIA? How you're going to be contributing to energy equity, and how you're going to be investing in America's workforce. And you have to address these 3. You can't just address one and pick the one that you're strongest, all 3. And this is the evaluation and selection process. There's multiple phases. They're going to be looking at, are you eligible? Does it have the technical strength? And there might be pre-selection of interviews with one or more applicant, clarification on contents. There might be, you've got to address all the questions. If they have these interviews, where they're going to happen and when, it's TBD. And it's going to be used for pre-selection clarifications. So in summary, you've got to start early. You've got to register early. Make sure that if you haven't started your SAM.gov, go and do it. I did not see a requirement for the concept paper to have a SAM registration in UEI, but maybe it's part of getting an EERE exchange account. So if you're setting up and they ask you for that before you have a concept paper, then I'm sorry, you will not be able to submit your concept paper today. But I know for sure the FOA is very clear that you will need a UEI and a full completed active SAM registration. Read the whole solicitation, follow instructions, and reach out if you have any questions. And that's all I have.